Silver Creek, 1830. The dusty streets of Silver Creek. The summer sun blazed mercilessly over Silver Creek, where dreams withered like wild flowers in the drought. Eleanor Hayes stood outside Murphy's General Store, her cotton dress faded but respectable, her hands worn raw from taking in mending and laundry. At 27, she was already a widow, already struggling, already invisible to the respectable folk who passed her by. But not to him. Wade, the iron-heart Garrett, sat astride his black stallion at the town's edge, watching her with eyes like steel. His reputation arrived before he did, like the smell of gunpowder on the wind. They whispered he'd killed 5 men in Dodge City. They said his heart was forged in violence. They claimed he'd never known tenderness, and never would. Eleanor felt the weight of his gaze, burning hotter than the afternoon sun. She clutched her basket tighter, her pulse hammering in her throat. She'd heard every story. She knew what kind of man he was. Dangerous, untamed, alone. Wade dismounted, his boots hitting the hard-packed earth with purpose. He started toward her, slow and deliberate, like a predator who'd spotted his prey. Eleanor's breath caught. What could a man like that possibly want with her? She was about to find out, and nothing in Silver Creek would ever be the same. Eleanor pushed through the store's weathered door, hoping to escape those piercing eyes. But escape wasn't something a woman in her position could afford. The bell chimed, and she knew without looking that he'd followed her inside. Mrs. Hayes. His voice was like whiskey over gravel, rough from years of giving orders and swallowing regrets. She turned slowly, meeting his intense stare. "Mr. Garrett, I'd like to propose something, if you'll hear me out." His hat was in his hands now, fingers working the brim nervously. For such a fearsome man, he suddenly looked almost uncertain. "I don't take proposals from men like you," she said, her voice steadier than her trembling fingers. His jaw clenched. "You don't even know what kind of man I am." "I know enough. The whole town does. The whole town knows rumors and lies." He stepped closer, and she caught the scent of sage and leather. "I'm offering honest work. Your boy, Daniel, he needs—" "How do you know my son's name?" Her blood turned to ice. If you're enjoying this tale of forbidden frontier love, hit that like button and subscribe for more Wild West romance stories. Comment below and tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing from our viewers around the world. Wade's expression softened. "I make it my business to know things, ma'am. I've been watching how hard you work, how you keep your dignity when this town treats you like dust. I have a proposition that could change everything." Eleanor's heart raced. Should she listen or run while she still could? The lamp oil was nearly spent, casting long shadows across the cabin's bare walls. Daniel slept peacefully in the corner, his 9-year-old face untroubled by the worries that kept his mother awake. A knock at the door made Eleanor jump. She knew who it would be. Wade stood on her porch, hat in hand again, looking almost vulnerable in the lamplight. "I shouldn't have mentioned your boy without permission," he said quickly. "That was presumptuous. I apologize." Eleanor's anger wavered. A man like him, apologizing? "How do you know Daniel's name, Mr. Garrett?" "I told you. I notice things. I've seen you working yourself to the bone, while the so-called decent folk of this town look right through you." He shifted his weight. "I own a ranch 10 miles north. I need help running it. You need money. It's simple mathematics." "Nothing about you is simple, Mr. Garrett." "No, ma'am. It surely isn't." Then why did every instinct tell her to say yes? Why did her heart pound not with fear, but with something else entirely? "What exactly would this arrangement entail?" she asked carefully. Wade's eyes held hers. "Come see the ranch tomorrow. Bring the boy. Then decide." Before she could answer, he tipped his hat and disappeared into the summer night, leaving Eleanor with a decision that could save her or destroy her completely. Eleanor had accepted, against every warning from the church ladies, against every voice of reason in her head. But Daniel needed shoes. Daniel needed food. Daniel needed hope. The ranch sprawled across the valley like something from a dream. The main house stood proud, 2 stories of solid timber that must have cost a fortune. Corrals held horses that gleamed in the sunlight. Fields stretched to the horizon. Wade met them at the gate, his expression unreadable. "You came." "I gave my word," Eleanor replied, climbing down from the borrowed wagon. Daniel clung to her skirts. Wade's entire demeanor changed when he looked at her son. His hard features softened. "Daniel, there's a colt in the barn that's never been properly named. Think you might help me with that?" Daniel's eyes went wide. Before Eleanor could object, her son was running toward the barn like he'd been given the keys to paradise. "Mr. Garrett." "Wade, just Wade, when we're here." The way he said, "we're," made something flutter dangerously in her chest. Something she thought had died with her husband 3 years ago. "What exactly will my duties be, Wade?" He smiled, and it transformed his entire face, revealing the man he might have been before whatever darkness claimed him. "Everything," he said simply. "You'll help me bring this place back to life." But was he talking about the ranch, or something else entirely? The routine had become comfortable, dangerously so. Eleanor cooked, cleaned, mended Wade's shirts, while Daniel learned to ride under the ranch hand's patient instruction. She told herself it was just work, just survival, just temporary. But the way Wade looked at her across the dinner table, the way his hand lingered when passing her something, the way he listened to her words like they mattered, that wasn't just work. Eleanor. He'd started using her first name last week. She hadn't corrected him. "There's something you need to know about me, about why I'm alone out here." Her heart stopped. "What is it?" "I wasn't always a rancher, and I wasn't always alone." He stared into his coffee like it held confessions. "I had a wife once, Rose. She died bringing our daughter into the world. The baby died too. That was 12 years ago." Eleanor's hand covered her mouth. "Wade, I'm so sorry." "After that, I became the man they say I am. The mean one, the violent one, the one who doesn't feel." His eyes lifted to hers. "And then you showed up, with your boy and your pride and your strength, and for the first time in over a decade, I felt something besides rage." This confession changes everything. Show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing for the next chapter of this emotional journey. Comment below, where are you watching from? Share this story with friends who love deep, complex characters and slow-burn romance. Eleanor reached across the table, her hand covering his. "You're not the only one who's been numb, Wade." His eyes met hers, and she saw raw hunger there, raw need, raw hope. "Eleanor, please don't." But what he was asking, she couldn't tell. Eleanor couldn't sleep, her mind racing with thoughts she had no business thinking about. Her employer. She'd come to check on Daniel's horse, or so she told herself. "Can't sleep either." She spun around. Wade stood in the doorway, his shirt unbuttoned, his hair disheveled like he'd been running anxious hands through it. "I was just checking." "The horse is fine." He stepped inside, closing the distance between them. "Eleanor, we need to talk about what's happening here." "Nothing's happening." "Don't lie to me, and don't lie to yourself." His voice roughened with emotion. "I see how you look at me now, and God help me, I can't stop thinking about you." The air crackled between them. "This is wrong," she whispered. "You're my employer. I'm trying to provide for my son." "I know it's wrong." He was close enough now that she could feel his breath. "But tell me you don't feel this too." She couldn't, because she did feel it, burning through her like wildfire. "Wade!" Thunder cracked overhead, a summer storm rolling in fast. "We should get inside," he said, but neither of them moved. The first drops began to fall, and Eleanor realized they were standing at a crossroads. Whatever happened next would change everything. Would she step forward or pull away? They'd made it to the porch just as the deluge hit, both drenched, both breathless, both suddenly aware of how thin, wet fabric could be. "You're shivering," Wade said, his voice rough. "I'm fine." "You're stubborn." You're bossy." They were arguing, but neither was backing away. Thunder rolled across the valley, and Eleanor jumped. Wade's hands instinctively reached out to steady her. And then they were touching. His hands on her arms, her palms against his chest, the rain pounding above them like drums. "Wade." His name was a warning and a prayer. I know we shouldn't." His forehead pressed against hers. "But Eleanor, I'm tired of fighting this." So was she. Heaven help her, so was she. But before either could move, the door flew open. "Ma?" Daniel stood there, rubbing his eyes, looking between them with innocent confusion. "Why are you all wet?" Eleanor stepped back quickly, reality crashing down like the storm. "We got caught in the rain, sweetheart. Go back to bed." Wade's jaw clenched as Daniel disappeared inside. Eleanor wrapped her arms around herself. "This can't happen," she whispered. "I have to think of Daniel, of my reputation, of—" "I know." Wade's voice was heavy with resignation. "I know what you're giving up by being here. I won't ask you to give up more." But as she went inside, she wondered if she'd already given up everything that mattered, including her heart. Eleanor had insisted on a day of rest, taking Daniel to the creek that ran through Wade's property. She needed distance, needed to think, needed to remember who she was, a respectable widow, a mother, a Christian woman, not someone who spent nights dreaming of a dangerous man's touch. "Mama, look!" Daniel was knee-deep in the water, pointing upstream. Wade was riding toward them, his horse moving at an easy pace. Eleanor stood quickly, smoothing her dress, hating how her pulse quickened at the sight of him. "Didn't mean to intrude on your day off," he said, dismounting. "But I needed to apologize. For the other night, I crossed a line. You work for me. You're vulnerable. I took advantage." Her temper flared. "I'm not some helpless creature, Wade Garrett. If I didn't want you close, I would have said so." His eyes widened. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying," she took a breath, "I'm saying I don't know what I'm saying, but I know I've never felt this way, not even with my late husband." The confession hung between them. Wade glanced at Daniel, then back at her. "Then we need to figure this out, because I can't keep pretending I don't care. And I think you can't either." Daniel came running over, oblivious to the tension. "Wade, can you teach me to skip stones?" Wade smiled, but his eyes stayed on Eleanor. "Sure, son, I can teach you lots of things." And Eleanor realized with sudden clarity she wanted that, wanted this, wanted them to be a family. But wanting and having were two different things in Silver Creek. Eleanor's hands shook as they rode into town together. Wade, Eleanor, and Daniel, like a family. The stairs started immediately. Mrs. Pemberton from the church gasped audibly. The banker frowned. The other widows whispered behind their fans. Eleanor lifted her chin higher. "You don't have to do this," Wade murmured. "I can wait with the wagon." "No," her voice was firm. "I'm not ashamed." "Eleanor Hayes," Mrs. Pemberton marched over, her face pinched with righteous indignation. "What is the meaning of this display?" "We're shopping, Mrs. Pemberton." "With that man? Have you no regard for your reputation? For your son's future?" Wade's jaw tightened, but Eleanor placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Mr. Garrett has been nothing but kind to Daniel and me, and frankly, my reputation was destroyed the day I became a penniless widow. At least now I have help. I have hope. I have someone who sees me as more than a burden." The gathered crowd murmured. Mrs. Pemberton's face turned crimson. "Well, I never." "No, ma'am. You probably never have." Eleanor took Daniel's hand. "Good day." As they walked away, Wade whispered, "You're magnificent." But their victory was brief. Sheriff Collins waited ahead, his expression apologetic but firm. "Mrs. Hayes, Mr. Garrett, I need a word." Eleanor's stomach dropped. "What now?" "There's been a formal complaint," Sheriff Collins said, his tone regretful, "about impropriety, about a widow living alone with a man. unsupervised. Eleanor felt her world crumbling. It's not like that. I believe you, Eleanor, but the law is the law. You need a proper chaperone, or you need to leave Mr. Garrett's ranch. Wade stood abruptly. Or, his voice was steady, determined, or we get married. The room went silent. Time seemed to stop. Wade, you don't have to. I want to. He turned to her, dropping to one knee right there in the sheriff's office. Eleanor Hayes, I know this isn't romantic. I know it's not what you dreamed of, but I'm asking anyway. His grey eyes were fierce with emotion. Marry me. Let me be a father to Daniel. Let me protect you, provide for you, love you the way you deserve. I was dead before you came into my life. You brought me back, and I don't want to go back to that darkness. This is the moment we've been waiting for. If this story is touching your heart, hit that like button and subscribe to see what happens next. Comment below, where are you watching from? Share this Wild West romance with anyone who loves emotional, slow-burn love stories. Tears streamed down Eleanor's face. Daniel tugged her skirt. Say yes, Mama. Please say yes. Eleanor looked at her son, at Wade, at the future she never thought possible. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. But through the window, Eleanor saw Mrs. Pemberton watching, her expression dark with something Eleanor couldn't quite name. This wasn't over. Eleanor couldn't sleep. Tomorrow she'd become Mrs. Wade Garrett. Tomorrow, her life would change forever. She stood on the porch, watching the stars, when footsteps approached. Having second thoughts? Wade asked softly. No, yes, maybe, she smiled weakly. I'm terrified. So am I. He stood beside her, not touching, just present. I never thought I'd feel this again, this hope. Wade, there's something I need to tell you. Eleanor took a breath. My husband, Daniel's father, he wasn't a good man. He drank. He was cruel. I was relieved when he died, and that makes me a terrible person. Wade was quiet for a long moment. It makes you honest, he finally said, and strong. You survived something awful and kept going for your boy. That's not terrible. That's extraordinary. She turned to him, tears in her eyes. I don't deserve. Please don't. He cupped her face gently. Please don't say you don't deserve happiness. Please don't give away your hope to guilt or shame or this judgmental town. Please don't, she whispered, but she didn't know how to finish. Please don't leave me. Please don't change. Please don't let this be a dream. Wade understood. I won't, he promised. Whatever you need me not to do, I won't. He kissed her forehead, tender and sweet. Tomorrow, you become my wife, and I promise you, Eleanor, I will spend every day earning that gift. As he walked away, Eleanor touched her forehead, feeling the warmth of his kiss. Tomorrow, everything would change. The church was nearly empty, just Sheriff Collins, a few ranch hands, and Daniel sitting in the front pew with a grin splitting his face. Mrs. Pemberton and her friends had made their position clear. They wouldn't attend a sham wedding. Eleanor stood in her best dress, simple but clean, as Wade waited at the altar. He wore a new black suit, his hair slicked back, looking more nervous than she'd ever seen him. Dearly beloved, the preacher began. The doors burst open. Mrs. Pemberton strode in, followed by half the town. But they weren't there to celebrate. Stop this wedding, she declared. I have proof that Wade Garrett is wanted for murder in Kansas. Eleanor's blood ran cold. Wade's face went pale. Sheriff Collins stood. What proof? Mrs. Pemberton held up a telegram. From the Kansas Marshal. Wade Garrett is wanted for killing 3 men in cold blood. The church erupted in whispers. Daniel grabbed Eleanor's hand, frightened. Wade's jaw clenched. Those men were outlaws. They'd murdered a family, including children. I tracked them down and brought them to justice. The only way they'd come was dead. He was a bounty hunter, Sheriff Collins said slowly. I knew that. It's all legal. Legal murder is still murder, Mrs. Pemberton spat. Eleanor stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. Then I'm marrying a man who protects the innocent, a man who has honor, a man who's given me and my son hope. She turned to Wade. I don't care about your past. I care about our future. Wade's eyes shone. Eleanor. Finish the ceremony, she told the preacher. Now. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey through forbidden love on the frontier. If you loved this story, make sure you've liked this video, subscribed to our channel, and shared it with friends who appreciate romantic Wild West tales. Comment below telling us where you're watching from and what you thought of Eleanor and Wade's story. More tales of frontier romance coming soon. And as they said their vows, as Mrs. Pemberton stormed out, as Daniel cheered, Eleanor realized something profound. She'd finally found home, not in a place, but in a person, in a lonely cowboy who'd given her everything, including his heart.